his feet on the rudder pedals and released the handbrake. The plane lurched forward. He wrenched the control wheel to the right, but the plane kept going straight ahead. Only then did he remember what Ronnie had told him. On the ground, you steered with your feet. The control wheel was only effective in the air. The prisoner took a hand off the wheel and wiped his forehead. He had to stay calm. He had to remember everything that Ronnie had taught him. He pushed his right foot forward and immediately the plane veered to the right. He overcompensated and tried to use the control wheel to get the plane back on course. Rudder, he muttered to himself. He jiggled the pedals and manoeuvred the plane to the end of the runway. The windsock down the runway was blowing towards him, so he'd be flying straight into the wind. He pushed the top of both pedals forward to operate the brakes and held the plane steady. The gyroscopic compass was about 20 degrees adrift, according to the magnetic compass, so he reset it. A heading of 340, Ronnie had said, north-northwest. He pushed in the throttle as far as it would go and let his feet slide off the pedals. The plane rolled forward, accelerating quickly. He used the pedals to keep the noise heading down the middle of the runway, resisting the urge to turn the control wheel. His eyes flicked from the windscreen to the airspeed indicator. 30, 35, 40. The runway slid by, faster and faster until it was a grey blur. He waited until the airspeed hit 65 and then pulled back on the control wheel. The plane leaped into the air. His stomach lurched and he eased back on the wheel, levelling the plane off. A gust of wind made the plane veer to the left, and he pulled back on the wheel again and started to climb. Below, houses and gardens flashed by, then a road. He began to laugh. He was doing it. He was actually doing it. He was flying. He looked at the altimeter. 500 feet and climbing. Wisps of cloud hit the windscreen and then were gone. Ahead of him were grey clouds, but he could see large areas of clear sky between them. The control wheel kicked in his hands as he hit an air pocket and he gripped it tightly. He scanned the instruments. Everything seemed to be okay. He looked down at his feet and realised he'd left the fuel selector switch in the off position. He reached down and turned it to both, freeing up the fuel in both tanks. That had been a stupid mistake. Running out of fuel wouldn't have been smart. He took the plane up to 1,000 feet and levelled it off, pulling back on the throttle as Ronnie had told him. He looked out of the window to his right. There was a beach below, and then he was flying over the Solent, towards the town of Lymington. The muscles in his neck were locked tight with the tension, and he rolled his neck. Taking off was the easy part, Ronnie had warned. Getting the plane back on the ground would be a lot harder. He flew through a patch of cloud, and for a moment he began to panic as everything went white. Then just as quickly he was back in clear sky. Ahead of him were more clouds. They were grey and forbidding, and the prisoner was suddenly scared. He pushed the control wheel forward and took the plane down a few hundred feet, but all he could see ahead of him were the slate grey clouds. Far off to his right was a flash of lightning. The clouds seemed to rush towards him and he turned the control wheel to the left, figuring he'd try to fly around the storm, but he was too late. Before he could react, he was inside the storm. The plane buffeted by the turbulent air. He could see nothing but impenetrable cloud. It was totally white, as if he were surrounded by a thick, cloying mist. There was no way of telling whether his wings were level or not, no sense of which was up and which was down. The engine began to roar, and he pulled back on the throttle. It didn't make any difference. He scanned the instrument panel and saw that his airspeed was rising rapidly. He was diving towards the sea. He yanked the control wheel back and his stomach went into freefall. His compass was whirling around, but nothing he did stopped the spin. He began to panic. He'd been crazy even to think that he could fly. Crazy.